Hey, sorry, my dog's about to freak out. Even if that's like the only reason for hating him, like that's plenty. But there's so many others. I mean, just everything about his campaign finance violations, his refusal to fully fund the Portland Street response, his like complete silence about you know what he was actually doing to help the people in Portland this past weekend when it was so hot. He's just terrible at his job. So our goal is to fire him. Basically, we can fire someone in the government when it's not working, and that's the recall. It's just a democratic response to somebody who's not doing their job. Um, Really quickly, the process, and you may already know about this, so feel free to like type up if you don't need this covered, but it tends to be a place that we get a lot of questions. So we had to wait 6 months before filing the petition, and that was July 1st, and that petition was filed on July 1st. Once we get the green light from the city, well, it's not actually true. July 1st begins our 90 days. We have to collect roughly 48,000 signatures, valid signatures, within 90 days. Once they get those signatures back and they say that they're valid, he will have either 5 days to resign, which we do not expect him to do because he's so entitled, or he's going to have to write a 200-word essay about why he shouldn't get fired that will go on the ballot. And on like hard days in the campaign, I just picture him sitting down with Sam Adams, trying to like write a little essay about why he doesn't suck. And it brings me joy in my little black heart. So the recall election will be held 35 days after that 5-day resignation period, and that's just the ballot will just be head against themselves. It'll be, do you want to recall or do you not want to recall? And if the majority votes yes, he's immediately out of office. There's no interim mayor until a special election is held, and that would be a couple months later. And we won't know who's going to be running that election until they announce themselves. Basically, right now, we're in this phase of knowing that the bigger we build, the more people we have on the ground collecting signatures, the more money we bring in, the more resilient we are going to be in dealing with his wealth and power. There's still time for us to like train signature gatherers, to educate people about why we're doing this and to fundraise. And we are literally right now, we will be signature gathering like any minute. We're very, very, very close. So the things that people can do right now, they can donate, they can volunteer with us, and they can help us spread the word about what we're doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about volunteering. Because that tends to be a place where we get people who are interested and then kind of like lose them into not knowing kind of how they plug in. So we divide our work into several teams. Our field team is the team that goes out into the community. They're doing park days. They're running Pedalpalooza rides this summer. We said to cancel one, but it's rescheduled for July 27th, I believe. That might be right. It might not be right. They're going to events in the community, talking to people about what we're doing. They're also helping with the fundraising team and our signature gatherers. Like there's a lot of overlap between some of these. So field team is really like focused on getting out into the community. Our fundraising team is doing phone banking. They just did a session tonight. They're doing outreach with supportive businesses and trying to get endorsements and have them donate items to auctions and that kind of thing that we can do with fundraising. Throwing house parties, all sorts of stuff. Our communications team, that's the group that is working on our social media messaging, drafting statements and press releases, designing graphics, all of those kinds of things. And all of those teams have like kind of like various levels of engagement that we can have. Our communications team, we just have like a social post channel where people can just suggest things that they would like to see on social media. We do have like a style guide and like tone and all of those things that we're trying to maintain with the campaign. So there's some like guardrails on that. But we do really want people to help us with all of this. It's a heavy lift for the team to be constantly getting communication out. So we also have an operations team, and I will mention that if you have like web development, like coding, that kind of background. We do need somebody with like web dev skills. We're looking for somebody to do that right now. And
I'm afraid all I could offer is like basic markup language. Like I do some editing on Wikipedia.
Oh, okay. We do also have like our biggest list right now. Obviously, is going to be gathering signatures, and so we have we have 4 trainings a week right now to train people on going out and gathering signatures, and we'll be publishing a schedule here as soon as we get the green light, so people can sign up for shifts to go out and neighborhoods to canvas and all those things. So those are kind of our big volunteer needs at the moment. And also, if you just like have ideas of like things you would like to see the campaign do or whatever, like we're open to all of that.
Well, then that would get into the finance side of things. I already know somebody who's essentially trying to donate to this PAC, but said that they couldn't like talk about it or like publicly endorse it on their show for OPB. Oh. I don't know if you know anything about that, but yeah.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of rules around, like, depending on who's doing the donating, like, individuals can always donate, but whether or not they use, like, a platform that they have to talk about it, like, I know we have a lot of, I was just in communication with, like, the Timbers Army people to say, like, hey, we feel like you guys probably share some values that we share, would you be interested in supporting us? And while they do, and they would, they can't because of their like nonprofit status. So individuals can always donate, but like there's just a lot of rules around campaign finance stuff. We are not a campaign that is about a candidate, which frees up some groups that think that they can't donate because normally they can't donate for like a candidate-based campaign, and this is not a candidate-based campaign. This is an issues-based campaign. So there's rules around it. We do have somebody in the campaign who can answer lots of questions about that, though. So if you want to just I'll just send you an email when this is over. You can for sure get them in touch with me, and I can make that connection.
Right. I'm actually still confused as to how this is going to work. If, say, this actually does happen and he gets recalled, we have to have a replacement? We have to find a candidate or something? Or do we just go back to Teresa versus, like, Sarah I ran?
No, we do not go back to that election. In fact, if we never talk about that election again, everyone would be happy. We will not, like, Total Recall PAC will not endorse, find a candidate, like, have anything to do with a candidate. That's, like, not the kind of PAC that we are, and that's not a thing that we are allowed to, nor would we do. And we have people in this campaign that come from both of those camps, from Sarah's and Teresa's. We have people from, like, kind of all across the political spectrum, really. Not a lot of far-right people will join our group and talk to us, but for sure...
That's a whole new line of question I wouldn't actually mind getting into. Is the Multnomah County Republicans actually going to do anything about Ted as the, opposition party, or are they just about as politically irrelevant as we can expect them to be?
Yeah, they're such a small group, honestly, in Multnomah County, and in Portland specifically. We don't expect them to, like, have a big impact on much, but they really hate Ted Wheeler. Like, for us, like, they really hate him. Now, when it comes to, like, a special election, they're going to be annoying because they're going to obviously try to run somebody. But for our purposes, like, if they want to, like, vote for us, if they want to donate to us, any of that stuff, we'll take their money, we'll take their signatures, right? Because our goal is we're solely focused on firing Ted Wheeler. He sucks. He's bad at his job. We have different reasons for hating him, for sure. But we hate him, and everybody wants him fired. So we're not, and like I said, we're not going to be playing a role in that, like, special election part. We will be playing a role in that recall election. And we expect them to be supportive of the recall election. To what degree that makes any kind of difference, I don't know, because, like I said, they're a small group. They don't tend to get a lot of, like, traction in Portland.
Right. Well, it's still going to be better than a grift in front of City Hall, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And and there is another campaign, or there's at least there's a website and a group that also says that they're trying to recall Wheeler. That is another, I believe, leftist, coming from the left group. But they haven't done anything. They haven't filed a petition, and they haven't coordinated with us. We kind of don't know what their intentions are or anything like that, or if they're just making money off the selling t-shirts or what. But we're actively petitions filed, ready to go, starting signature gathering very soon. So, and the other piece of it is that like I said, we won't be finding that those candidates that are going to run. What we expect and what we believe is that basically politicians are going to politic, and that people who are interested in this job already know about us, right? We've gotten enough press and there's enough attention to this that they know that this is happening, and people who might be interested are paying attention to whether or not this is going to be successful. And I think that as we get closer to the 90 days, if it looks like we're successful, I think we'll start hearing those rumblings of who's intending to throw their hat in the ring. In the meantime, we just won't have a mayor, because duties will get divided out to the rest of the people in city council. And
I'd like to think this would be a great time to pressure him to give a police commissioner to Miss Hardesty, because she is actually qualified and wants the job.
Yeah.
But I don't know what this guy's problem is. There's a lot of dynamics I wish I understood. The Republicans, they don't seem to have a lot of good reasons for hating him. That he makes the PBA happy, Sam Adams is there. I guess it's all just cultural warrior stuff to them.
Yeah, he thinks because we see a lot of their comments, they like to write stuff about us, about how basically Ted has let Antifa run the streets and ruin Portland, and
of course.
What?
I said, of course. They're they were on board with the whole de-mask effort and the protest, more or less, saying you're not even allowed to wear protests. You shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Yeah, and they also have a lot of things. We both agree that he's not handling the situation with houselessness well, right? We have very different opinions about that, though, right?
Right.
So it's just the same divide that we see on every single other thing, right?
Right. It's I think the PBA are going to hang out Ted Wheeler to dry, personally, because I don't know if you also know this. The PBA put in their own little publisher for the Oregonian. So they kind of let everybody know about that beforehand, though.
Yeah. Well, and so far, in terms of press, we've gotten pretty friendly coverage. Even, less from the Oregonian, but a little bit from the Oregonian. They haven't been very mad. They haven't had very bad things to say about us. Obviously, the Tribune, I don't know if you saw there, who are these mystery shadow people behind the total recall effort? We think it's Sarah Ironrone, which it's not. She has nothing to do with it.
Are you sure? I kind of know info.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So Alan, who is one of the people that started the PAC, he did work on her campaign. But no, she wrote a lengthy response to that article, denouncing pretty much everything in the article. And it doesn't sound like she has any intention to throw her hat back in. And honestly, in most recall situations, in other recalls, it would be foolish to run somebody who lost a previous election. It's kind of common knowledge that if you lost in the other election, you should not be a candidate in the recall election. Now, like I said, we don't know for sure who's going to do what, but I honestly have heard nothing nothing credible about her actually having any intention of jumping back in.
I think the problem is if there is if there is people who are interested, it doesn't seem like they're even able to come out into the public space about it yet.
Right. Yeah. And it's not safe to, right? Like, I mean, we went into this with businesses. So some businesses that we have talked to support us, want to support us, and aren't quite ready to like be publicly supporting us yet. It's really going to depend on, I think, in part, those first few weeks of signature gathering. If we can report out this is how many signatures we've already gathered, and those numbers are good, and it's going to give us some more validity in that public perception, and people might start to feel like this is like a thing that might actually happen. We're convinced that it is. Like, we feel very confident in our ability to gather that amount of signatures in that amount of time, and to get those votes later. But people are a little cautious because retail elections in Portland are rare and rarely successful. So we understand the hesitancy. But yeah,
we got to be able to learn from the past, though. We did it, or there was quite a few attempts done on Sam Adams himself when he was mayor.
I know. There were, but even just recently, just a couple of years ago, the mayor of Oregon City was recalled. There are examples of recall elections being successful. Portland doesn't have a great history of it, but I think a lot of those, there's a lot of times when petitions get filed without a lot of the work that needs to go in up front to make those attempts successful. And we've been working on this steadily for months. We've been building this. We've been bringing in money. We've been building our infrastructure to make this happen. We're not just filing a petition and then winging it for the next 90 days. We've been building to this moment. So we're feeling good about kind of where we're at. If you do decide, I'm going to get back to this really quick, and then I'll turn off the screen here so I can finish this part up anyway. If you do decide you want to volunteer, we pretty much work on Slack and on Zoom. Have you used Slack before?
I have not.
Okay. You fill out the volunteer form. You'll get an auto response back that will give you an invitation to Slack. It's just like a message board. It's pretty simple. It's like Discord, if you're familiar with that. It's very similar to that. Basically, it's just like a online workspace. So there's different channels. So there's an announcements channel where anybody can post announcements that are for everybody. And then there's more specialized channels. So if you're interested in being on the field team, there's a field channel. If you want to be a signature gatherer, there's a signature gatherer channel. There's also just a random channel. If people want to post funny memes they saw about February, or events that are happening that they think are interesting that don't have anything to do with the recall or whatever. It's just kind of a social space there too. That last bullet on here, don't be shy. We want to hear from you. That's 100% genuine. If you do join, we do really want you to participate, and we want you to be there. I think it can feel a little bit, because some of us have been doing this since, February or whatever. It can feel a little bit like you're jumping into a thing where there's already a bunch of people talking about a thing. You're jumping in mid-conversation sometimes. But we're really trying hard to make sure that if you're new, you know where to go. If you're new, you know how to plug in. And if you see us, if you see a conversation happening and you're like, hey, actually, have you thought about it this way? We want to hear that stuff. It can get a little siloed, a little echo chambery sometimes, and so having other people type in is always really helpful. The other thing that we do, we have the Slack, and then we also have Zoom meetings every week for the team. So field and fundraising meet on Tuesdays, ops and comms meet on Wednesdays in the evening. If those don't work, it's okay. We have running notes that are available for every meeting, and they're also bringing back, if there's a specific ask for, we have a project, we need somebody to do this thing, they're bringing that stuff back to those channels too, so you can find out if you can't make it to the meeting. But obviously, we love it when people come to the meeting. And there'll be meeting reminders and links and all of that stuff in the Slack channel for each of the teams. We'd love to see you at all of those. And I think that's all the stuff I have on here. Let's stop screen sharing there. So what other questions can I answer How can I help you figure out if or how you want to plug in?
Sure. I mean, my general question is just sort of looking at the last election and going off of their interactive map. Would it make the most sense to go into the areas asking for signatures that people voted for Ted in, assuming that if they've already voted against the guy, they might actually just sign it?
Yeah.
What do you think is the most beneficial tactical route to go in? Because I'm already in an area that's like got recall signs in it.
Oh, good. So we have a field director that's actually like running all of that signature gathering. So there's plans. We have some paid signature gatherers, like professional signature gatherers that are going to like very like high traffic locations to do numbers, right? And then we have our like massive crew of volunteer signature gatherers. They're going to be going out into different neighborhoods and locations. And our field director is running both of those two crews simultaneously. And so she will be putting out a schedule of like, this is where we're going to hit, this is what we're doing. And my understanding is that like that like strategic stuff is going on. I'm not doing that. That's not my job. But that is a place where that is happening. And our field director, Anita, is who you would actually want to talk to about, like, have you guys thought about this? Or, I'm thinking about this neighborhood. Can I just go canvass it? We're gonna have our signature gathering sheets available online too. If you don't want to go through us or whatever, you just want to go hit up all your neighbors.
Right. And maybe you should include her email in an email to me or something. I mean, I'm going to be busy the next couple weeks, so the best I feel like I could do is just sort of spread the word. And, lately I've been wondering, like, should I go through with an email to Joanne Hardesty? I've thought about, like, hey, asking her to just sort of, like, lean into this. I've asked Earl Blumenauer, but unfortunately I asked him, like, maybe a month before he'd already scheduled the meeting with the PBA. I saw that, and it wasn't just him. It was Ron Wyden, surprisingly enough. So I'm just at a loss as to like what to do meaningfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll send you her email, and then also if you need to wait a couple weeks to get like active with us, if you're gonna be busy for a couple weeks, and then you feel like you can like jump in, that's great. The schedule for the signature gatherers and like locations and all of that stuff is going to be on our like public website. That's not just going to be in Slack. So if you see, when you're ready, if you check out the website and you're like, okay, it looks like they're going to be in this neighborhood on this day, I can make it. You can just like sign up and show up, and she'll hang back and do training for people that haven't already gone through like a signature gatherer training and all of that stuff. It doesn't need to be like a massive commitment. Just like, if you just want to jump in when you can, that's great. And if you're just more interested in like the like strategy part of it, for sure, I can give you her email and you can talk to her. And the other thing is just to like get into the Slack where like we have, kind of like conversations about that, and you could always throw that into, like the random channel or whatever. It's like the place that it would go. Not that it's a random question, but the place where it would go would be there, and just say like, hey, this is what like I'm thinking about reaching out to this person. Like, do you guys have an idea about the best way to do that? Or what about like how can we get this person involved or whatever? We personally won't be reaching out to Hardesty or anybody else because we can't. It's like against the rules for us. But individuals can, right? And if you want to ask her to like lean into it and turn, demand that he turn over PPV or whatever, like, that's individually a choice that we can do. But that's not something that we...
Right. I'm thinking of nudging the guy into doing something positive before potentially giving him the boot. Hold the feet to the fire, you're on thin ice sort of mentality.
Absolutely.
I'm also just thinking long-term strategy,
Yeah.
What do I do if the recall doesn't work the way I want? Well, there's still the next one.
Yeah. Well, and for me, honestly, like, just personally, like, as a volunteer, like, when I first signed up, I was really nervous about some of the same things we talked about, like, the old election. I don't want to see the old election be the new election either. And Ted's eligible to rerun. He can rerun if we recall him
again for a third term.
It wouldn't be. I don't think it would be a third term. Our understanding is that he can run again. And honestly, even if he did that, or even if we just ended up with like Ted 2.0, like equally shitty Ted, not Ted person, basically, you know, Sam Adams or Dan Ryan or whatever. Even if one of them decided to run and get mayor, I still feel like if we're successful in recalling Ted, it's great. It's great news. That's a win, regardless of what happens after that. Because my personal belief is that he wants to be the governor.
I've heard that too. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that gets around.
Well, it's what he wanted originally. When he was the state treasurer, that's what he wanted to do until Kate Brown got appointed. Like his plan was to run for governor, and then she got appointed, and he decided not to run against her because she was like beloved at the time. And so then he decided to run for mayor instead. So like mayor's always been kind of a consolation job. It's not the job he really wanted. And I believe that he still wants that governor job. And if we can just, honestly, like, you know, brand him bad enough with, like, he's been recalled, he's, like, bad for Portland, nobody likes him. If that can just stop him from being governor, for me, that's a win. Because I don't want to see what he can do statewide.
It's just, it's so hard to imagine, though, too. You seen the price of this guy's book?
He's a nightmare.
Like, Ted, how am I supposed to, like, buy your book, dude? I gotta pay my bills, and don't you, like, want to sign it for me so I can sell it on eBay?
Well, and somebody was like, I think, wasn't somebody, like, reading it online or something? Somebody that actually got a copy of it? And it seemed terrible. There was somebody who was, like, I think, live tweeting reading it, and it seemed real lame. Yeah, so anyway, I mean, for me, like, that's kind of, like, the way that I would resolve all of the, like, debate for myself about, like, whether or not, like, this is a good idea or not a good idea or whatever, is that, like, I fucking hate Ted. I don't want him to be the governor someday. And if we can stop him, and send a message to everybody else, like, the message that Dan Ryan gets, the message that, like, Mingus Mask gets, the people that have, like, stood up.
I don't understand the, why do we hate Dan Ryan again? Is it because he's not willing to defund the police anymore?
Yeah,
is that my understanding of that?
Yeah, he ran on one platform and then is like done the other. And he has a lot of similarities with Ted in terms of like his you know, compassion and willingness to like actually do anything. He did marginally more than Ted did, while, you know, 70 people died in Portland from heat. But not a lot, even though, like, homelessness is, like, that's his area that he's supposed to be in charge of. But, you know, like, we're not recalling him, we're not focused on that. But if at least this sends a message, like, we are willing to, like, hold people accountable for, like, not doing this and say something.
How well informed can I assume other people are in this pack? Like, have you all read the Mother Jones article that mentioned Ted and I guess another mayor that was kind of booed out of a crowd? I think his name was de Blasio.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I may not be right about that, but I can show you that article if you want.
Oh, yeah. When I send you this email, like, send it back to me. That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, we tend to keep pretty good tabs on, like, press that's happening, but occasionally things, you know, slip by.
I would like to think that defunding the police is a much more broad message that could be used as a sort of tactic of consequence, much like you would any other employee. Like, sure. Does that make sense? Does that sound practical?
I mean, to me personally, right? Like, I mean, I'm an abolitionist personally, so like, I have lots of thoughts about like defunding our way out of living with a non-functional criminal justice system. But in terms of like the PAC, like the way that we're talking about it, we're really not going into like defunding. That's like not a thing that we're talking about. Not because people in the PAC don't believe in it, but because it is like a trigger button, right? And if it's going to harm us in firing Ted, we're very careful about it, right? And there's lots of people who believe in defunding. There's lots of people who believe police cannot be reformed.
Right. I didn't mean to veer off topic if you don't want to go into it.
Yeah. But so like we just are very careful about our tone, right? Like as a PAC, that's really, but I mean, I agree with you that yes, that's
right.
That's, I think is definitely a thing that we should be doing, but that's,
Okay, well, our time is just about up. Do you want to conclude this, or should we be...
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and send you the emails, all the links, and everything else. If you want to send me the article, I'd love that.
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a great night.
You too.